Best advice I ever got in security. Go.
No two companies have the same risk profile. So you need to understand what the risk it is to your company so that you can effectively craft the right strategies that can protect your critical assets. It could be your data, your people, whatever it is.
You're listening to CISO Series Podcast, recorded in front of a live audience in Seattle.
Welcome to the CISO Series Podcast. My name is David Spark. I am the producer and host of the CISO Series, and we are live in Seattle. Let's hear it. We are here at the Convene Conference. This is the show for security awareness. It is hosted by the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Thank you very much, National Cybersecurity Alliance, for hosting us. I appreciate that. Let me introduce my guest co-host, who's sitting to my immediate left right here. It is none other than Nicole Ford, who is the Senior Vice President and CISO over at Nordstrom. Big round of applause for Nicole. Let's hear it for her. Say hello to the audience, Nicole.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I want to also say a huge thanks to our sponsors, and that would be KnowBe4, Proofpoint, and Vanta. Big round of applause for our sponsors for the show today. And before we start, I actually saw a movie recently that is very relevant to this audience, and it's the movie Thelma that's reasonably recent. By applause, has anyone seen the movie Thelma? One person has seen it. One person. So this is a movie about a 93-year-old woman who gets taken for a phone scam. And she actually loses thousands of dollars. And the hook of the movie, though, is that she fights back. She finds the scammers. And what it becomes is an action film with a 93-year-old woman as the star. And they kind of hit all the stuff. Let me ask, have you ever had family members, Nicole, that got scammed or close to being scammed?
So, of course I have. I don't know if they would be embarrassed if I told you about their scams and what they fell for, but absolutely I've had. My son, who I'm so embarrassed to even state that he was scammed, he thought that he was going to get something back from the scammer on Facebook Marketplace, but in fact, nobody gives you a check to cash and they're going to give you cash back. Never happened. So, yes.
All right. Well, my mom got one of those calls where someone calls out of the blue and goes, "Oh, we've seen some problems on your computer. You need to download this." And literally, I get a call from my mother because she did it. And he goes, "I think I made a mistake." And I said, "We're going to destroy that computer." That became the end of it. All right. Let me invite our guest who's here joining both Nicole and I for this show. It is none other than Varsha Agrawal, Head of Information Security for Prosper Marketplace. Let's hear it for Varsha.
Thank you, David. Very happy to be here.
Do you trust this LLM?
So designers of LLMs, large language models, the engines that create the AI systems we so adore and are afraid of, are building guardrails to prevent answers to questions like, how do I build a bomb? And how do I design a dangerous narcotic? So in an effort to exploit their weaknesses, hackers are utilizing unusual prompting techniques to jailbreak these guardrails to get answers to these dangerous questions. It's all an effort to spot vulnerabilities as reported by Superhuman. Now, this sounds like an endless game of whack-a-mole where you're trying to create security controls around every single creative pathway to get a bad result. While these AI red teaming exercises are valid, and I'm throwing this to you first, Nicole, will creating more guardrails be the solution, or is there something we're missing? Because I think endless guardrails, like there's going to be diminishing returns and it's going to go on forever.
Well, first of all, I think it's a training issue. So I know we're here at the Convene Conference. So of course, prompt generation is super important, teaching people how to use prompts appropriately. It all goes back to ethics. So every company, every organization should have some sort of AI code of ethics that they leverage, right? And we should train people on how to use LLMs appropriately. So it all starts with people. It all starts with their use of AI, and organizations are going to have to lean into that. Why is that important? It's important because the industry has not caught up. There are not tools that we can use today that provides appropriate guardrails. So it is whack-a-mole. And I think until the industry catches up with a set of tools that we can leverage as CISOs and for our security programs to protect our employees and our organization, we're going to continue to have this problem. But in the meantime, again, I'm going to say one more time, it's a training issue that we need to address.
Varsha, what's your take on this? And by the way, I should also throw out, it's not just, you're right, it's a training issue, but then there's all the other people who have access to these LLMs who, if they want to hack it and do some harm, that's their intent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think I really agree with everything that Nicole said, right? It is about training. It is about the people. It is about that legal sort of framework, that code of ethics that need to govern the use or the misuse of AI. Another aspect that I would throw out there is also all of these guardrails that we have today in place, right? Those content filters or those response limitations, they're very static in nature. And the problem that we're talking about is very dynamic. It's evolving so fast. Like Nicole said, it's difficult to keep up, right? So we need to figure out a way of incorporating that adaptive AI. And by the way, there are lots of issues with adaptive AI that I can talk about, right? But the AI itself needs to be able to learn and adapt its own responses to these, queries or patterns, which it seems sort of be related to it probing for vulnerabilities or something of that.
So this is actually a really interesting question, and this could hopefully get us away from sort of the endless whack-a-mole. Could adaptive AI learn a wrong path? Have we seen that before? You're nodding your head, Nicole.
Yeah, I think that there are parameters around teaching it the wrong path, and that if it's adaptive, then it can learn what the wrong path is and over time evolve, right? So as we evolve, the large language model needs to be trainable and it needs to learn. And if it's doing that, then I think it becomes the appropriate guardrail that's necessary to protect our people.
Let me ask this question. Because we teach kids what's right and wrong, what you shouldn't do. How would an adaptive AI be different than how we teach our own children?
I think we need to have human in the loop. I think that's a very critical piece of the whole AI safety chain. So when it comes to adaptive AI, it needs to be able to flag queries that it sees as ambiguous or complex. And then the human has to be that final decision maker. It will give AI the feedback on, hey, this is legit, it's for training or research purposes, or no, this is sort of for nefarious purposes. So then the human trains the AI on how to spot it better.
So it's super interesting because if you think about it, remember back when we first started using DLP, right? And she's absolutely right. Like having a human that could actually look at specific queries or prompt generation and go, hey, that looks a little nefarious, right? Maybe we should investigate that. Again, that's where I think the human intervention has to occur. And most security programs are positioned to be able to provide that type of oversight and guardrails.
Pay attention. It's security awareness training time.
Get ready for what I'm about to say. Security awareness training programs and platforms aren't effective. Is that heresy at the Convene conference? So Jacob Friedman of 3 Tree Tech challenged conventional thinking about phishing tests. Now, he's not the only one. My co-host, Mike Johnson, who's the CISO of Rivian, doesn't think simulated phishing tests are a valid means to build a security culture. Now, Friedman argued that while these platforms can provide results like reducing percentages of phishing clicks, they aren't fundamentally solving the problem of humans being used as pawns in security breaches. Now, there was a heated discussion to Friedman's post, with many supporting and others pushing back, as I would think many of the companies represented here would do, as would our sponsors, for that matter. Now, this is not the first time we've heard this complaint, but it's maligning an entire industry. So I'll start with you, Varsha. Where do you stand on this? And where do you see success and or failure in the security awareness training industry?
There is a lot to unpack here.
I know, there's a lot.
I think just going back to phishing simulations, right? If that is the only tool in your tool belt for incorporating security culture into your organization, then you're sort of using a very limited approach and you will get very limited results, right? Phishing simulations are a piece of the puzzle, not the whole picture. That being said, the biggest value to me, honestly, with phishing simulations is the metrics, the data I get in that segment of user base, which is of a higher risk to being phished at my company. It's not so much the training, the 5 to 7 minute training that is generic, that we're dispensing to everybody, that is of value. It's more so who is that set of user base who is higher risk. And then once we identify that user base, then it's up to us to sort of give them appropriate levels of trainings which are specific to their roles, to their job functions. So it's not just that 5 to 7 minute training, it's more training, it's sort of more engaging security awareness in general.
I also get the sense with phishing tests, it's more of just an exercise function. Like you would exercise your body, you're exercising sort of your preparedness, like a martial artist is sort of prepared for being attacked at any time. They're exercising.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nicole?
This is super controversial, you guys, right? So, and it's a topic of interest for CISOs, right? I mean, we do these exercises, and this is really like gamification, right? That's what it is. And I think we get more value out of knowing that people actually hit the fish button and reported it than whether they clicked. Again, I think it's super important to understand that people know what to do, right? We often say people are our greatest asset, but there are also our greatest weakness. And that is a concern. So I'm going to be a little provocative. I think that everybody should have a risk score. Now, you probably have heard about that. You can clap. You can clap on that one. Clap, okay? So how do we make sure we provide more targeted training? And you guys are here at the Convene conference, so I'm sure that this is top of mind for you, right? But the reality is not everybody is at the same level and have the same knowledge, right? We are managing intergenerational employee populations with people that are young and older, more seasoned employees as well, right? So we have to make sure that we understand where they are and we need to bring the right training to them. If I'm talking to somebody who is early career professional, they just came into the workforce and they are, right, digital natives. They know a little bit more than maybe somebody who is a bit more seasoned. So I have to tailor my training based on this intergenerational workforce that we have. Again, to me, when I think about training that has been most effective to me, it's training that is necessary for me, right? Maybe there's something I don't understand, and maybe a snippet, a small video, 2 minutes, because most people can't take and retain more than about 4 minutes worth of information to begin with. So it has to be short snippets, and I think it has to be tailored to individuals based on their risk score.
Who's our sponsor this week?
We have 3 phenomenal sponsors here at the CISO Series podcast recording we're doing, and I'm going to tell you about our first one, and I'm going to tell you about all of them throughout the show. But the first I want to tell you about is Vanta. So whether you're starting or scaling your security program, Vanta helps you automate compliance across frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, and more. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora, they use Vanta to manage risk and prove security. And trust centers have become very, very popular these days. So our listeners, they will get $1,000 off of Vanta if they go to vanta.com/CISO. And that's VANTA.com/CISO. Go check it out.
It's time to play What's Worse?
All right. For those of you who are familiar with this show, we have a game called What's Worse. And it's a risk management exercise where I will give you two horrible scenarios, and you have to tell me which of these two horrible scenarios is worse. Are you ready? You know how this game's played. Nicole, you've played it before.
I have.
All right. This comes from Jay Dance of StubHub, which he has supplied us with lots of great scenarios. Here we go. First, I'm going to set up the premise here. You triage a phish report from one of your users. After triage is completed, it's clear that the email source is a legitimate business that has been compromised by a criminal actor who is now abusing the email service of the business to spam enticing emails that click through to something malicious. As part of the resolution of the phish report, you have added the affected business domain to your incoming blacklist so your users are no longer affected. But you are concerned that the criminals are able to continue targeting other businesses through this infrastructure. Now, what's worse? Two situations. Your company has a policy against reaching out to the compromised party, so you are unable to let them know they have a criminal actor in their environment. You confirm from your own mail logs that the compromised business continues to send malicious emails and has not evicted the criminal from their environment. Or, scenario number two, you successfully reach out to the compromised party, but a week later you receive a letter from their legal department threatening you with legal action if you persist in notifying them of security problems or disclosing them to the public. You confirm from your own mail logs that the compromised business continues to send malicious emails and has not evicted the criminal from their environment. Which one's worse? You're up first, Nicole.
Oh, I knew it. I knew I was going to be first. Oh, they're both really bad.
Yeah, they're awful. But there is a worse scenario here.
Well, I don't like being contacted by legal departments. So that's going to be the worst one for me is the second one, because I'm going to want to do what's right and tell other organizations about what's happening, right? Or maybe I can do it by sending an anonymous email, right? But again, that's me wanting to serve people better.
But the first one, you're serving the company better. So actually, it's probably working out for you here.
It may be, but I would have in the back of my mind that other organizations are getting this terrible email, and I knew, and I didn't say anything.
All right. So you're taking scenario two. You think
Yes.
this one's worth?
Yes.
Varsha, how do you think?
Honestly, I'm going to go with scenario one.
Scenario number, that is worse. Scenario number one is the one where you have the policy of not reaching out, so you don't reach out.
Well, then I'm actually not going to reach out to them is what I'm going to do.
So that's the preferred of the two. So you agree with Nicole
So
here.
then I agree with Nicole. Yes, exactly.
And what's your rationale for agreeing here?
I'm going to go to I know my legal department's going to tell me do not contact them.
Right.
So
So just let it go.
Let it go.
And even though you want to do the right thing.
Exactly. Got to follow the company policy.
Yeah.
That's tough.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm throwing this to the audience. How many people think it's worse to just not reach out to them and let the abuse continue? By applause, because they can't hear your hands going up. By applause, how many people think it's worse to tell them and get threatened by legal? Far less. No, they don't agree with you here.
I mean, I just want them to know. I don't like getting calls from the legal
Nobody likes
department
it.
at
Nobody
all.
likes it at all.
Yeah.
What is Dave's mom talking about?
All right. This is literally the game that you just heard. It's called What is Dave's Mom Talking About? I interviewed my mom about terms in cybersecurity, and they're relevant to this audience right here. So I will say in general, my mother is an elderly woman, does not work in cybersecurity, does not have a huge amount of knowledge in cybersecurity. So sometimes she gets it right, but usually not right. So this is kind of a reverse logic game, but not in all cases. Sometimes she might get it right. It's a reverse logic where pretend you heard these phrases for the first, or these string of words together for the first time, and you knew nothing about cyber. How would you explain it? That's essentially my mother's explanation of it. Now, I'm going to start easy, and I'll just say she actually kind of got this one right. So tell me what this is.
A method of blocking others, keeping people out.
What is that? What is my mother? She's explaining a technology. What is she explaining?
A firewall?
That is correct. Yes, it is a firewall. Good job. All right. I am starting easy, though, for you,
Okay.
Nicole.
Oh,
From
boy.
here on in, it does
Okay.
not get easy. Because she got that one correct. The next three, well, not really. All right? But there are some semblances in each one. All right. I'll let you try for this one, Varsha. You ready?
All right.
Let me know if you can figure this one out.
When people get together and make plans.
What is a when people get together and make plans? What she's talking about something that's relevant to this audience.
Tabletops?
No, not tabletops. There is semblance here. What do you think she's talking about?
Planning?
No, making plans. That would make sense if she was making sense. Anyone have an idea of what? Again, it's a concept in cybersecurity. You all know it in this room. Obviously, my mother doesn't. What do you think she's talking about? Anyone want to take a stab at this one? So go ahead, yell it out. Risk management, what'd you say? No? Instant response, no? Convene, no, they're not talking about convene. Crowdsource, no? Bingo, it is social engineering. Good job. Let's hear it. That was social engineering. All right, let's go for another one. Here we go.
Avoiding the things that your mother told you not to do.
What is my mother talking about? Again, it's a concept in cybersecurity. Everybody knows what it is, except my mother. What is she talking about?
Risk management.
No. Although you're close.
I'm close. I gotta be close.
You're close.
Can you play it again?
Sure.
Avoiding the things that your mother told you not to do.
All right, everyone did so already. My guess here.
I
you want to
try one
again?
more time?
Try one more time.
Blacklist.
No, also good guess. Anyone want to take a stab at this one? Go ahead, yell it out. Risk avoidance. No, who would you say?
Clickbait?
No.
Trusting strangers?
No. You were close with that one. Hold
Okay,
on.
which one?
Best practices?
No. Zero trust is correct. Yes. All right. The audience eventually figures it out.
That was good.
All right, last one. Let's see if you'll get this one.
If you're invited to a tech party, bring your computer.
All right, she kind of gives it away a little bit on this one.
Okay, do it one more time. No, she does not.
I mean, she kind of gives it away. It's not really correct, but it has semblance of being correct here.
If you're invited to a tech party, bring your computer.
A hackathon.
No.
That's what
Am I close? I have to
That
be close.
again, if my mother knew what she was talking about and she was talking about the legitimately, yes, that would be correct. But you're again.
I'm bringing my computer though.
Yeah, you're bringing but that's kind of the giveaway right there. What do you think, Varsha?
First thing that came to my mind was actually Black Hat.
Black hat? No. Anyone? She's talking about a concept in technology. What?
BYOD.
BYOD. Yes, it's BYOD. Everybody.
Who's our sponsor this week?
And now a word from our sponsor, KnowBe4. So experts often agree the advantage goes to the attacker when it comes to cybersecurity. We've heard this before. The attacker can keep trying and probing at low risk and low cost, and the attacker only has to be successful once. And as our sponsor, KnowBe4, points out, email filters designed to keep malicious spam out have a failure rate of 7 to 10%. If your technical defenses fail in 1 out of 10 tries, you're out of luck and you may be out of business. So your best last line of defense is your human firewall. So you can test that firewall with KnowBe4's free phishing test, which you can order up at knowbe4.com/phish test. Now, let me spell that for you. It's KnowBe4. It's spelled KNOWBE4.com/phish test. And those of you in the know that fish is spelled PHISH test. KnowBe4.com/phish test.
What are the evolving challenges in managing identity and access?
The security community has been railing against passwords since time immemorial. Now, the rollout of passkeys seems to get us to a better place, but do organizations have the authentication maturity to see any benefits? We've seen adversaries take advantage of the account recovery process as it's a major weak point in the chain. They target these resets with adversary in the middle attacks, points out Terra Seals in a piece for Dark Reading. Now, I'll start with you, Nicole, on this. Is authentication going to be a turtles all the way down problem where there's always just another layer of human weakness for threat actors to exploit? I mean, is this just inevitable?
Yes.
All right, there we go.
The answer is this is inevitable. I think as long as humans are involved, there is always going to be a weakness. We see it everywhere. And again, we have better ways now when you think about password lists, right? And certificate-based authentication. There's all sorts of ways now that we can eliminate passwords. And I think that that's kind of the key, right? Because that's something that a user has to actually key in. So yes, I do think as long as humans are involved, it gets tricky. The more that we can eliminate that, the better off we are.
But it seems that we're going to, like from your original response, yes, we always have to create a kind of a break the glass scenario.
Yes.
And that break the glass scenario is going to have a human involved. Right, Varsha?
Not necessarily.
Okay, let's hear it.
Passkeys, right? The biggest problem is the whole account recovery piece, right? Passkeys are certificates that are stored on the devices. And if you lose your device, right, device gets stolen, lost, now your account recovery is gone, right? Now you need to sort of go to a less secure account recovery option, which is where sort of the downfall of passkeys is, at least right now, based on whatever research we've found, right? So maybe one of the answers is having another passkey as a backup. So have two passkeys, right? Where if in the scenario where your first passkey gets the device gets stolen, now you've got another that you can potentially use. There are certain other technologies like magic links, which have been shown to sort of break you out of that attacker controlled flow, which is again, what happens with a lot of those passwords or other less secure authentication methodologies.
That might not have been the best decision.
We've already challenged you with one unpopular cybersecurity opinion, so let's jump into a few more. Password rotations are pointless because they make for lazy passwords. Adding AI to security products isn't helping to improve security postures. And writing down your passwords in a notebook is actually a valid methodology. Lastly, excessively implemented zero trust harms the user experience and needs a middle ground. So these opinions all arose out of a discussion on the cybersecurity subreddit. Now, while the masses would disagree with most of these, I would argue that our very savvy audience would actually agree with many, if not all of these. So I'll start with you, Varsha. What are your thoughts on this list, and do you have any unpopular opinions of your own to add?
So from this list, let's see what I agree and disagree with. Password rotations are pointless because they make for lazy passwords. So I agree with this statement. The reason or the whole theory behind password rotations was, hey, we want to limit the exposure, right, if your password got compromised. But the problem today that people are having is they're creating sort of these weak passwords to begin with, right? They're they're changing the passwords in a very predictable fashion. So the answer really here is sort of the use of either MFA or use password managers. So that's sort of my first.
No, how'd you feel about the others? Do you agree or disagree with the others? Let me ask you, any of these you disagree with? Like about adding AI and helping improve security posture?
I disagree with excessively implemented zero trust. But
so
then
you think excessively implementing is cool?
So hold on. I want to clarify, what is excessive implementation of zero trust, though?
Well,
so that's where the nuance lies.
There's a point. Here's the thing with zero trust. There's a point you have to trust somebody. You have to trust the vendor who sold you the product. You have to trust the implementation. There's lots of levels of trust that get involved here. What do you think, Nicole, of this list? And again, any tab of your own.
Yeah. So the question is, which of these do I agree with? Because a couple of them are kind of your break glass, right? Let me say this, right? Writing down your passwords in a notebook is a valid methodology. It's not the first thing you should do. However, depending on the scenario, you probably want to have those passwords somewhere. Just saying, in a safe,
In a break the glass situation.
Yeah, in a
Right.
break glass situation. In certain scenarios, we got to write something down, right? This notion that we're never going to write anything down is crazy. And I have been in scenarios where, thank God, we wrote something down. You're right. So.
Right. And I'm going to toss to you for a second, Varsha. My mother writes down her passwords in some sort of scribbled text, but you think, how many people have access to my mother's desk at home? Few to none. So the threat landscape is very minimal. All right.
And then I was just going to say, it's also more important that you write it down rather than create a weak password that you can just remember.
I agree with that.
All right. I want to know, do you have any to add to this list? Ones that like the rest of the world doesn't believe, but I'm on board. I believe this to be true. What do you think? Anything?
Okay, I have one.
Yes, go for it.
You ready?
Okay. I'm sitting down.
This is okay. EDR solves all problems. Security is a series of controls and solutions to protect an organization. Defense in depth matters.
So
but
you think EDR, like we wouldn't need any of
problems.
this if we had well implemented EDR?
No. What I'm saying is this is one that I disagree with.
Okay. Well, you disagree, and you think others believe in that?
Yes.
Okay.
EDR solves all problems.
Okay. So EDR doesn't solve all problems.
Right.
You
It
do
doesn't.
need defense in depth.
You do need defense
And
in depth.
and that's a good example because we see many companies have EDR installed and they still get ransomware.
All the time.
Exactly. All right. Do you have one to add?
I'd probably say we don't have a cybersecurity talent shortage.
Oh, I
This
love
has
that
come
one.
up so many times. Okay.
Really?
I want to hear your argument for this.
So we've got a lot of, by the way, I'm hiring, and I know I'm going to talk about that. We've got a lot of people in the market who are qualified, who are talented. There's a separate argument for making sure the next generation and the younger, the kids are growing up and coming into the industry, but that's separate. Today, I don't think that we have a talent shortage. There are enough number of people in the market who are qualified, trained, that are looking for jobs.
Well, what we have seen is the demand is very high. And the classic case is someone who came into your company 4 years ago at skill level 2, over the 4 years got to a skill level 9 and left. The problem is you want to hire a skill level 9. You don't want to hire a skill level 2 and train them up to a 9, which is what you did when you first hired that person. And that is often the case. Have you seen this?
We have, but I think companies are, or at least we are, changing the way we hire there, right? We need to.
What's a significant change you've made in hiring?
So we are not looking for that 9.
Okay.
We are looking for that 2, knowing that we're going to invest in them and we're going to level them up.
I want to say a few things about this because I loved that one. So the other thing that we are, just to be a little provocative, is do we really need college degrees? Right? You guys can clap for that. I think this generation of people growing up, they are digital natives. I'm going to say it one more time. And so the skills that they need, they have developed over a period of time. And they understand the information. They understand some of the techniques much better because they actually have lived it. It's a part of their lived experience.
Who's our sponsor this week?
I have one more awesome sponsor to tell you, and that's Proofpoint. So how does an organization build a strong cybersecurity culture? Dr. Bob, from our sponsor Proofpoint, outlines 3 principles. The first is communication and feedback. Through stories, people cultivate an interest in the topic as well as remediate any potential misconceptions they might have. The second is building an engaged culture where people learn the way they want to learn and understand why they're being asked to learn. And the third principle is building a culture of trust and respect. This is where we look to our employees as an extra set of eyes when identifying potential breaches or other security-related issues that appear within the organization. Through the continued application of these principles, it is possible to move an organization in the right direction. For more on how to build a security culture within your organization, go to our sponsor's site, and that's proofpoint.com. It's spelled the way it sounds, Proof, point, Point.com. Check them out.
It's time for the audience question speed round.
So I hold in my hand right here a series of questions from this very audience right here. And they have a lot of very good questions. In fact, we have one question that's very relevant to what our sponsor Proofpoint said. And we're going to get through as many of these as we possibly can. So I would like to get your takes on this, and also from Proofpoint. So Alex Panaretos of Proofpoint asks, either one of you jump in, how does your organization culture shape your cyber culture? And just to add, like, if there are strict ways that the organization works, or it's very punitive the organization works, like your cyber culture will probably have to follow that, because if it doesn't, that's what people are going to expect. So how does the organization culture shape your cyber culture? Yeah, either one jump in.
Yeah, it's important for the organizational culture to sort of not dictate, but drive security culture as well. For our company, Prosper Marketplace, our culture is one of the sort of strong points of our company. We've got a very security-focused, forward culture. We've got a very open, collaborative culture, and that drives a lot of, the security sort of strategies and work that we do. We talk about security. It's a very collaborative effort between our stakeholders and us, where it's not so much security is coming in as a stick and making certain changes, or I would say dictating those changes. So that's how we're at least dealing with this.
And then before you jump in, I just want to ask, I'm sure that you've had different cultures at different businesses, Nicole. So has your security training culture program changed as a result because of that?
Yes. I think different cultures require different security programs, right? It should be fit for purpose. And so at Nordstrom, our job is to make people look and feel their best. And so we are a people first culture. We ask our employees to use good judgment. And so using good judgment means that we have, strong compliance in areas where we know we want to protect our customers' data. We want to protect their shopping experience, and we want to ensure that they recognize that we're a brand that they can trust. And so it's super important for us that people understand, what good judgment means as it relates to cybersecurity. So yes, I think culture does matter, and it does drive and dictate the program that you have.
All right. We got a bunch more questions. So quick answers to everything I have here. And I know they're ones that we could do a whole show on. This comes from Andy Stewart of Common Spirit Health, who asks, what, if anything, have you changed with your third-party risk management over the past year?
We are looking at how we could use our tools differently. We're anticipating AI really helping us to get through our assessments faster and with more meaningful information that we can share with our third party. So, yes, and I think we are hoping in some ways that the technology will catch up to what we believe would be a great use case and scenario for it.
We've actually changed the 200 long questionnaire that typically cyber risk questions are. So we've narrowed it down to a smaller set, which are sort of more qualitative in nature. And then, like Nicole said, we're also using AI now to sort of risk score our vendors. So getting a lot of that human aspect out, and it makes for a lot of efficiencies and productivity increases.
David, let me say one other thing. So more frequent touch points and third-party education is something that we're also working through, so that we can be more connected to our third parties, because we recognize, and we've seen a plethora of attacks this last 6-month period, and we are watching and kind of learning from the lessons of some of the other retailers in our sector and some of the challenges that they faced.
That's an excellent point.
All right. So another question from Kimberly Pavlich of Proofpoint, who asks, do you think nudging or like just-in-time information is the way to go? Because like the point she makes is we send pop-ups to people like, just-in-time information, but at the same time in awareness training, we're saying, hey, don't click on the pop-ups. So there's a conflict that's going on here. So does that work? Does it not work? What's your feeling?
The nudging.
The nudging. She calls it nudging or just in time.
I love that. I think that there are like subtle advice you can provide, right? I'm sort of still grappling with why don't we get, how there are like these little question marks with the help, right? But what if we had those pop up more often as people are on their computers and maybe there's some risky behavior happening and they get some sort of advice, right? So I think that it's kind of this just-in-time information to help people make a solid decision. That's what I want to see.
Right, but the thing is the conflict of there's other pop-ups that are dangerous. So how do we know the good and the bad? But then again, it's like there's good and bad all over the internet.
It's called risk, right?
Right,
like, listen, I'd rather encourage them to do something great. And if it takes a pop-up to do that, and that's something that would work, I think I'm all for it.
All right, let me jump to the next one right here. This is our last question here from Adina Kalieva of Smartsheet. And this could be a long answer or a really, really short answer. But Adina asks, and I will say Adina has asked this of her CISO many times. How do you manage your stress? Both of you, I want to hear an answer.
Oh, boy. Okay. I'll give you some more time. So number one, I think self-care matters, right? I think mental health is super important in the work that we do. We're always talking about CISO burnout. I mean, we live from one incident to the next, right? And it's almost a little bit of a PTSD, right, that we have as a result. So, downtime is super important. I really try to take mandatory vacations. I have to have them pretty frequently. I think it's important to have the downtime, right? And it means even like not having my phone with me at times. And so I love playing golf because on the golf course, people cannot find me other than the people that I'm with. And it's a really great time to decompress. And I'm always down for a good massage or a spa day. So that's how I, manage my stress, is really making sure that I have adequate time off with my friends and my family, doing things that I love, like traveling, golfing, and taking a spa day every once in a while.
Everything that Nicole said, and I would also add by making sure you've got a great team supporting you. So level up, empower your team, make sure that they have the right skill sets, and that's it.
Well, that brings us to the very end of the show. Let's hear it for our audience and the convened crowd. All right, I want to thank you, Nicole. Any last words you'd like to say before we sign off?
So we are at the Convene conference. So I would certainly say my last words are our users are our greatest risk, but they're also our greatest strength. The more we invest in them and help them to be more digitally savvy and cyber savvy, the better off we are.
All right.
Invest in your security culture.
Oh, by the way, Varsha, are you hiring over at Prosper?
Yes, we are. Reach out to me if you want a job.
All right, that's awesome. All right, so let's hear it for both Nicole and Varsha. And let's hear it for all our sponsors. It's KnowBe4, Proofpoint, and Vanta. Remember, go to proofpoint.com, go to vanta.com/CISO for $1,000 off Vanta, and also knowbe4.com/phishing test to get your free phishing test. Thank you to Convenes. Thank you to Lisa and Cliff for making this happen. And thank you to the audience. We greatly appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do. We have lots more shows on our website, CISOseries.com. Please join us on Fridays for our live shows, Super Cyber Friday, our virtual meetup, and Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review. This show thrives on your input. Go to the Participate menu on our site for plenty of ways to get involved, including recording a question or a comment for the show. If you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, contact David Spark directly at david@CISOseries.com. Thank you for listening to the CISO Series podcast.